6 years earlier, put those mandates in the Constitution. Those maps were the ones that would go into place for the 2016 elections and finally have fair districts in place for the citizens of Florida to vote in. So congratulations. And the Senate, in their special session, couldn't even come up with a map for themselves. They were working on their own map. It shows the nature of the beast. They could not do it. In the very end, Senator Lee submitted a map to President Gardner. It went into the courts. It was very weak against the maps that we presented. The court once again ruled in our favor, and it was 2 weeks into January where President Gardner said, we're done. We're not even going to appeal this to the Florida Supreme Court. We accept the lower court's decision. And those Senate maps also are finally, once and for all, the maps in place for the 2016 elections presented by the League of Women Voters and Common Cause. So it was a landmark decision. It was a landmark win. It showed failure is not an option. It shows hard work does pay off. It shows the people's voice can win. It shows we've got real problems. We do have real problems in Tallahassee and in our local governments, and we always have, and we probably always will. But only one thing can change that. And this is my predecessor's favorite quote, and that is, what? A small group of people. A small group of people committed to an idea, in fact, are the only ones that can change the world. And we showed that in redistricting, and we're going to show it in so many, many, many other issues. So our voice is strong, our voice is credible, our voice has integrity. We move on to continued issues that we're working on. This year, we look forward knowing that campus carry and concealed campus carry and open carry will be back. That'll be another new issues to bring up in the legislature. And those issues, those gun issues, which we have positions that we were advocating against those two. And it wasn't even just our positions. Campus carry this session, we said, where is the public outcry for campus carry? Where is the public saying we want guns on our college campuses? Because every university president and college president, every university and college law enforcement official said, really? No, undeveloped frontal lobes, alcohol, college campuses, guns. How does this all make sense? They all said no, yet that legislation was sailing to the House and the Senate until it got to the Judiciary Committee in the Senate. And the results of fair districts, which we are going to see over the course of the coming years, didn't expect to see the results of it as quickly as we did. We knew, and we were very hopeful, that the results of fair districts would bring more candidates applying to run for this election because they would be running in fair, competitive districts, that the discourse, hopefully, as we move into that here in our state of Florida, it's got to get better, right, than the federal level. The discourse will be higher, the subject matter will be good, the quality of the conversation should be better, and I hope we're doing candidate forums and debates locally to help encourage that. But what we didn't expect was immediate results of redistricting. And the best example is, here's we have this gun bill. It gets over to the Senate, and Miguel Diaz-La Portilla from Miami, the committee chair, I was sitting there in that committee meeting, and someone brought up from the league, where's the public outcry for this? And I think it was sinking in to every single one of our 40 senators who has to run for election. Every single one of our 40 senators has to run this year for re-election. Most of them to constituents that they haven't met before, that are new. Maybe some of them they've known before, but a lot of them, they're all new districts. So they're going to have to go back to people and explain during this election process why perhaps they voted a certain way or didn't vote a certain way on what were very, very public bills. and this was one of them. And De La Portilla said, you know what, I can't do it. I can't go back to my constituents and say, against every university president and law enforcement, I still voted yes for this bill because the largest lobbyist group, the NRA in the state and in the country, was really the one behind this bill. And he stopped it in the Judiciary Committee. And it wasn't only that one, but open carry followed the same path. And then when we got to fracking, totally different subject. Another interesting committee sitting in that, 145 people got up and spoke against fracking in Florida. A lot of them from your area and down in the southwest, Collier County, the Naples area. Didn't want it. And this was sailing through committees as well. And it was Senator Tom Lee who said, you know, I've listened to 140 people, or read the 140 cards, and he admitted, it's going to be real tough. I want to vote for this bill, because I think it makes sense. But it's going to be real difficult for me to go back to my constituents and explain to them why I did. And Gary Richter, who was the chair of this committee, said, well, Senator, what would you like? And he said, I'd like to hear from the FDP, and I'd like to hear from some oil companies about, they're the supporters of this, why it's a good idea. So they temporarily postponed the bill. When they reconvened the next week, they had the FDP there, and they had Big Oil there, explaining the logical reasons that they were putting forth as to why we should have fracking, our very fragile infrastructure up in this portion of Florida and in the southwest part of Florida. And, you know, don't confuse facts with a good story. But the facts blatantly laid out that this did not make sense. It did not make sense. Fracking is not a bad thing in this country. There's places that you can do fracking if we actually need more oil. It's not on sandy shoals and fragile conditions that Florida is built on. And they killed that bill in the Senate as well. So another one where the senator said, how can I'm going to have to go back and explain this one. I'm going to have a hard time doing it. So those are the very beginnings of the trickle down of redistricting that we started to see in this session that were unexpected. So I think we're going to see a lot. This is not going to be revolutionary. People say, well, now we're going to swing the pendulum and everything's going to become under Democratic rule. You know, we have a Republican governor, Republican senator, Republican House. So now what is all? That was never the intent. Never, ever, ever the intent. We are a nonpartisan organization. Those districts were drawn completely to those mandates that you all voted on. So what we'll see is an evolution. It'll be evolutionary. I have no idea how many of these seats are going to swing from Republican to Democrat. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is that, as with everything in our elections, that it's done by standards, that it's done right, that the rules are followed, and then in the end, we have the best possible people representing us and listening to us, to people who hire them for this job when we go to the ballot box, and the people that can fire them when we go to the ballot box. It's a big job that we have, and that's what we do when we go and vote every single year. So it is an election year. We go back into legislative session after the elections. It's going to be very interesting to see the cast of characters that are there. We look forward, as we always do, to pathways of open communication, always trying to find a solution through education and advocacy, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But certainly, if we can't, and we know we're right, litigation is something we will never back away from. So with that, I want to thank all of you for all of your efforts. Congratulations on a great annual meeting. Congratulations on everything that you guys are doing up here locally and for the state. Cannot thank you enough for your support, your reaction and action on the action alerts that you do, your education and voter registration in your communities. It is priceless. Thank you so much for everything. And I'll open it up for questions. Any questions?
Does anyone know where the second mic went? Or Bill?
Okay.
I was too busy flying.
The keeper of the mic.
If you would like to ask him any questions, or please feel free to take the mic.
Pam, do you know what the status of Senator Corinne Brown's lawsuit related? She's the senator from Jacksonville,
right,
who's challenging the redistricting of her district,
right,
in the Florida Senate.
right. Corinne Brown's district was the juggernaut of, you know, like the template, the problem child, really, the juggernaut of the congressional maps that all the gerrymandering is the most gerrymandered district, or old district that ran north-south. And now it was redrawn and it runs east-west. She's lost every court case, and she's been in court for the last 6 years with us as well, trying to protect that district. She's lost every single case. Her last case was lost, and now she's appealing to the last place that she has, which is the federal Supreme Court. And frankly, we filed, and it's the first time we did this, we just last week filed a sanction against her because every ruling has been against her. It would take us back into court again, and we have no doubt that we would win in court again with the federal Supreme Court. What she is arguing is that those base amendments are not constitutional, and she's lost in every other court. So we're saying that we filed a sanction to try and save some money and some of our effort. Enough is enough. But if it does go to the federal Supreme Court, we are extremely 99.999% positive that they would rule in our favor. Again, no other court has ruled in her favor. And that district, I mean, she's using the amendment. She's also saying that it was a minority protected district before, and now that it runs east-west, it is not. It is clearly a minority protected district by 60%. And I think, if not all, the majority of people, many people who filed to run in that district are African Americans, so they realize that as well. So her argument has kind of fallen on deaf ears, but she soldiers on. She's a Democrat, so don't think that it's just Republicans. That's another Margaret Mead quote. If you want to if you set out just to be liked, you'll never accomplish anything. So right now, you know, it's not just the Republicans that have the highest respect for us, but aren't particularly happy with it. It's also the Democrats. There are Democrats that are not particularly happy with what we did. I was doing a news show, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, and I said, "So, is your phone ringing off the wall?" I'm like, "Nope, no one's calling me. I'm not best friends with anyone right now in partisan elected office." But that's okay. That'll go away. We have respect. We have credibility, and once again, we always keep those pathways to communication open, and it's extremely and most important here at the local level for you all to keep those pathways and communication open so we can continue your work in Tallahassee with myself and with our lobbyist, Debbie Harrison from Berger. Another question?
Pam Schwartz, recycled educator. A huge fan of the League everywhere and what goes on here. I believe in the last couple of months I saw that the trial about adequately the state's mandate to adequately fund public education was underway.
Yes.
And I was pleased with the state's study of charter schools and question our funding and the shell game that we play with education funding. What is the status of that? And
the opinion has not come back on that. We are awaiting opinion on that court case, and thank you for bringing that up. We're involved in 2 pieces of litigation, and that's all because of the study that we all did on public education and charter schools. And once again, the league is not saying charter schools bad, public schools good. We're saying charter schools of a certain ilk need to be looked at and carefully thought out, and there need to be standards and regulations. And our public school system certainly needs to be strengthened. So because we have those positions as a result of the work that you all did on that study, that allows us to go into, when we had no other avenue, litigation, and we're awaiting those decisions. We did not have a great legislative session on education, and it was our legislative priority that you all sent up to us. We were doing okay. We shot down, they actually had, and it was sailed past the House and was headed towards the Senate, a constitutional amendment that would have been on the ballot in 2016 that actually was proposing a completely separate parallel school system, charter school system, to our public school system to be enshrined in our Constitution. And we actually had Senator Bill Nelson join us, and we were in Tallahassee when all of us were there at Summit in February. And we got that piece of legislation killed, so that won't even come before people as a vote on the ballot. But bad things happen the last 2 days of legislative session, always. And as much tracking as you do, and as much advocacy as you do, and as much one-on-one meetings as you do, you never can predict what's going to happen that last 24 to 48 hours. And there were a lot of education bills floating around out there. And what they did was they started passing them on the floor, as we were out of committee then, so no public opinion. You know, once things go out of committee, it's one-on-one in senators and representatives' offices. But not a lot, no public comment or things like that, which the press can pick up on and help give motivation to. They started passing about the House and the Senate. They bounce back and forth, literally. Pass, pass, pass. They flip over to the Senate with an amendment. Another amendment is made, flip back to the House. The elected officials, I guarantee, in the end, don't even know exactly what they're voting on. It becomes so confusing. We were tracking it back and forth, and it's now known as the Education Train Bill. I think it ended up being over 180 pages. A lot of good was in that bill, but there was a lot of bad in that bill as well, and particularly where we talk about for-profit charters. So we have some work to do. Can't win every battle, just got to keep kicking the ball down the field and make sure that we're moving in the right direction. But we have a lot of work to do on that this coming session. Hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Rosemary Hayes Thomas. Excuse me. Somebody said to me the other day that they had been talking with someone who said, of the league, you cost the state of Florida, we taxpayers, a whole lot of money by that lawsuit. And I know if I had been there, I think I know what I would have said. But my question is, which is, if they had done it right the first time, they could have saved a lot of money. My question is,